It's the king.
It's the king. Wait, I can't read the comments. It's good that I can't read the comments because it's gonna go to my head. So everyone, keep it down. Hey, welcome. Right on time. It's that time. It's Friday. We are live streaming. It's me, Eric. For those that are just tuning in, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, X, wherever you're coming from, welcome. And this week, I've got my trusty co-pilot is Matt. Matt, you there?
Hello, I am. I'm happy to be back on SketchUp Live on SketchUp Live Day, aka Friday, with you, Eric, and doing some exciting stuff today. Some rendering is on the docket. Is that true?
Yes, we're gonna do some rendering, and then we're also gonna do. I'm hoping to go do kind of like a mashup, like basically take, put a little bit of V-Ray polish on what we've done here, which I'm gonna explain in just a second. But then also kind of bring SketchUp back into it. So it's almost like going SketchUp V-Ray back to SketchUp, and then or to layout, and see if we can do something special. So I don't know if we're gonna go to Photoshop. We might go to layout. We might do all of those things. We're gonna try not to bite off too much more than we can chew, just a little bit more than we can chew because that keeps things interesting.
How many softwares can we cram into the stream?
Um, Several more, but we're going to stop there. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to shrink myself down. We're going to do a quick housekeeping announcement about Basecamp, our big conference coming up, and then we're going to get right to it so we can use our time. So let's go ahead and shrink myself down here.
Bing, bang, boop, right into the juice. I like it.
Right into it. I don't have anything else to say other than here, let me pull up my little talking point. So while people are trickling in, again, we'll kind of warm, we'll kind of ease into it. I do have a page pulled up here. Um, this is, we always, of course, are going to do this for the next few months. You're going to hear us say, if you haven't already got a ticket to Basecamp, do it. But one thing that's new is under the program, not just can you, we will have a schedule coming out soon. We've started that process. You're going to see who the speakers are and what their topics are. That's going to start coming online in just a little bit. But right now, well, before we do that, we actually have to have people present ideas that they want to share with us. So all those people out there that have cool things that you're doing with your work, or if you're in film and television, or if you're visualization or drones, photogrammetry, whatever you're doing, AR, VR, all of the above, let us know. Here's your chance. Call for Speakers is open, and you can submit your idea now. Matt, anything you want to add to that?
Just that, yeah, I think the presentations are going to be outstanding once again this year. And those all come through this submission form. So yeah, definitely if you have something cool to show off and you want to get in front of people and show off your cool workflow, your cool business, use of SketchUp and Trimble related softwares and hardwares, this is the place to do it. Are you going to be presenting at Basecamp this year? Do you know?
I don't know. I assume so, but one thing we do is we want to make sure that this is a community event, not just us staff doing what we like to do, which is train and talk. So we want to make sure that everyone else's voices are heard first, and then what we do is like we fill in any gaps. So for example, landscape is something I like to do. If we're a little light, I'll probably come in and do something on grading and terrain or something like that. So I imagine I'll present something, but we don't know. We won't know until later. So I'll be there. So everyone, again, if you haven't already got your tickets, do that. I hope to see some people in person. So
Yeah, if you want to meet the rendering king. So shouts to Keggy for calling Eric the rendering king
I'm not accepting that because
already
what
before the
because
stream started.
that means this is not going to go well if I start taking credit for things. This is going to be called the how about the tinker or the experimentalist. That's what we're going
Oh,
to do today. We're going to play around. We're going to see what we can do, and wish me luck.
heavy lies the crown.
So
You just can't handle it. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
it does. Yeah. See, now I'm thinking. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Rendering is tough. Rendering is tough because, and it's hard to do it in real time because there is a little bit of tinkering what we're going to do. Let me just take a step back. Let's talk really quickly about what we're doing here, why you see this model on the screen. Some of you have seen this in various stages. This was not a multi-parter. This was what we called a collaboration, something that we did differently within the SketchUp creative content team. We gave different people different tasks. For example, I built out this little architectural shell, which was just this building shell that I thought could be kind of cool for a coffee shop. And then we passed the baton over to, I think the who went next was Aaron, right? Aaron took it and he went inside and built this really cool, he called it the spot. apparently the coffee shop, because Aaron called it the spot, we are now the spot. So I will make minor tweaks to things, but obviously I want to preserve as much of what Aaron had come up with as possible. We are the spot coffee shop. He built this nice little counter bar that's going to go into sort of the barista counter. And then Tyson took over and he did two, or actually three, but I ended up only using two. I liked his high stools better than his little padded chairs. But he built 3 custom chairs from scratch for us to use in this coffee shop. So one of them is this kind of cool slanted back chair. And then another one I put actually inside. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to go inside here. I'm in a wall. There we go. Sometimes I can cheat and use a section cut because if I get stuck in a wall. He did this kind of cool, almost industrial style sort of vintage bar stool. So, and then we passed it back to Aaron, and Aaron built an espresso maker. Now, I didn't know he was going to go this vintage. I thought he would do something sort of like, you'd see at a typical coffee shop. I don't know if they use these anymore. I actually have seen one, and my local coffee shop has one of these. They don't use it, just for display, but it's pretty awesome. You can still purchase these little steam pump machines. So that's the espresso maker that we're working with that Aaron did a really nice job. And lastly, I built out a patio. So let me turn my section off. And I built out a patio, and it's just an overhead, sort of a pergola or trellis, whatever you want to call it, and some little bar counter seating and some landscape context. So pretty simple. Matt, do you, we didn't include you. I'm sorry. You did a skate park, and I couldn't fit your skate park into this one. I could put it.
Oh, it could be off to the side.
Off to the side.
But
So.
no, it's okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say that I only drink coffee from that type of espresso machine. It's the best, and to me the only kind of coffee. So if it doesn't have an eagle on top, I'm not drinking out of it. But I just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, no, I think this really come together. And so if you have not seen those other streams, we have those the other streams where those items were created are on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch those if you're interested to see how those were created.
Yep.
But bringing it all together here today and visualizing the full space is it's exciting to see it come to life.
So as we get started, I want to just kind of share really quickly how the model is organized. So for those that have seen my streams, I am very particular about keeping things sort of clean and easy. So the ability to turn walls on and off so we can go interior and exterior, or to be able to toggle a section on and off so that we can get inside and out very quickly is important. We're going to need to be able to do that because we're going to be bouncing around, applying materials to different places. The other thing is I went ahead and wiped the materials. I'm on color by tag mode right now, so you can see how it's organized. But I went ahead and wiped most of the materials. And the reason why is because in V-Ray, we're going to replace them anyway. So I thought, well, I could either replace them with you or we could just apply them with you. So I thought I wanted to kind of almost take a step back and take out any sort of materials that we had applied almost as placeholders. And so we can start that process over together. And then lastly, I've got a little cheat sheet here. This cheat sheet off to my left is in case I get lost or flustered or something like that. It basically means that we don't have to necessarily go in this order, but this is a pretty good order to go in when you're rendering. So what we're going to do is we're going to check some faces first. We're going to go move into materials, lighting, and then we're going to check some render settings. So with that, see how quick that was? Are we only 8 minutes after? We're going to use up our time today, folks. So buckle in and hopefully you've got your coffee and don't blink. Here we go. Remember,
I just want to, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You interrupt me with comments.
Just going to shout out some people in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. We have people from Toronto, India, Norway, Honduras, California. I'm tuning in from Michigan. And let us know where you're coming in from in the chat. We're happy to have you here, of course. Jean Carlos asked, SketchUp 2024 when? You're not going to catch me on an insider trading tip here. Since Trimble is a publicly traded company, we can't say when new software is going to be released because, like I said, that's insider trading, man. I'm not trying to get caught up in all that.
Oh, come on. Just, a little bit. Just something to...
Just like the good old days.
Just give them something to hold them off.
Yeah.
It is. It's not. There's no bait and switch or anything, folks. We're for those that are on the beta testing program, you've seen the beta. You're part of the beta program, so you know that it's coming. So please, thank you for any patience. out there.
Yes. And we see Brazil, Dominican Republic, Jerusalem, Indonesia, Kenya. Wow. Oh my gosh. All across the globe. We probably have every time zone accounted for here on SketchUp Live today. So that's awesome to see. Everybody likes rendering, man.
Does everybody like rendering? I hope so.
I like rendering.
I do
If you
too.
if you do like rendering, let us know in the chat. If you don't, just stay quiet.
Well, listen, I actually have a love-hate relationship with it, and I'll tell you why. I love it because it allows me to sort of elevate my model, like where I'm going to go, how it's basically allows me to express myself in a way that SketchUp alone doesn't get you all the way there, and that's okay. That's nothing wrong with the way SketchUp works. I actually love most of the time the fact that that the simplicity of the style of SketchUp works really, really well for like 90% of things. But there are the kind of those sometimes where it's like, oh, I want those reflections. Oh, I want that sort of really high poly vegetation that a rendering engine can handle. And SketchUp says, no, it's not necessary for, SketchUp as being a surface modeler. So rendering is just fun because it just allows me to kind of get into that zone of like, okay, well, how do I want to express myself a little bit differently this time? Yeah. Does anybody else? I know there's other renders though, for those that are like looking at my process and thinking, well, that's actually kind of convoluted, or hey, takes longer than it should. Like what I'm doing right now, which is reapplying the materials. Well, you could have had them all applied. Yeah, probably. But what I wanted to do was really start fresh from clean. So what I'm doing here is all the things that I know are going to be wood, I'm painting them the same, just kind of tan color at this point. And so I have an extension called Materials Tools, and that's by TomTom. And what I can do is it allows you to really easily remove all the embedded materials. So if you have like 16 different materials from a 3D warehouse component example, you just remove all of them at once. And then you can go in and you can paint either on the outside or the inside, depending on how you need it to show up. You can paint on the outside of the component or not. So so this one here, I'm thinking, do I want this one? I think I want that to be wood with white accent trim. Yeah. So that's wood, and this is wood. So I'm painting all this wood. So Aaron, if you're watching, hi. Thanks for the great job that you did on this. I am sort of trying out something different with materials, and no, it may work, it may not work. We're gonna see. I think it will. I think keeping it simple. I'm looking at sort of metal, sort of like a metal with white and wood, something that you'd kind of expect to see in a coffee shop. And then we're gonna let some green plants and things like that pop and sort of be, the extra bit that we need. I noticed something here. I skipped my first step, which is check faces. So what I mean by check faces is switch to monochrome mode and look for anything that is oriented as blue, which is a back face. So back faces in V-Ray are boo-boo, or no.
Bad.
So bad.
Back is bad in
back
V-Ray.
Is bad. Blue is bad, and if you have blue assigned as your back face color. So what I'm going to do right now is, sometimes it's not a big deal, to be honest with you, but I think when we're setting good habits, we want to make sure that we are, let's just not take that chance. Like sometimes V-Ray material might give you, especially when you're working with like glass and transparent materials and things like that, you might find it's not going to respond the way you want to do if it's a back face. So go ahead and take that time as you're modeling. In a perfect world, you'll do it as you're modeling. And then in a less than perfect world, you'll do it like me after the fact.
Are all renderers like that? I mean, I know in most of your experiences with V-Ray, maybe people in the chat can let us know if you don't. But like, I know that it's like best practice to have the, front face facing out. But is it going to mess with all renderers if you do that?
That's a good question. You would think I would know the answer to that, but I don't use all renders, so I wouldn't.
Well, there's so many now, too.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that they each respond, they each have their own sort of settings, whether they, on how they treat it. But then again, I think it's just, again, one of those things where it's good habits. Doesn't hurt to just be checking your model as you model for back faces and just kind of be thinking about that.
Yeah, just keep it a little cleaner.
Oh, this doesn't show. This doesn't show, but I think when I was cleaning this up, I deleted some things. So, but it's okay because you're not actually, I don't think we're going to catch a view from up there in the storage shelf. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. Monochrome mode, we checked first one off the list. We're done. We checked our faces. I need to finish applying materials. It's going to take me a couple minutes. So Matt, if there's anything, I'm just going to be in my zone here. So if there's anything you want to share, anything that's going on with people in the chat, now's a good time because I'm just applying the materials that I know that I'm going to then swap later here in just a few minutes with my V-Ray materials.
Yeah, totally. One thing is that there's a lot of people talking about different renders in the chat. I think what makes V-Ray a good render, especially for like kind of instructional, like what can you do with it situations like this, is that it's sort of that, to me, V-Ray is like kind of a step up from like the, you know, the Enscapes and the Lumion, like the kind of the, for lack of a better word, like automatic, you know, kind of, you know.
Oh, the real time. It's
your...
like real time rendering, which is Lumion and Enscape are actually great in that, and that's what their strength is, real time rendering. So what you kind of what you see is what you get. Place an object, it's rendered right there in front of you in this little viewport. But what you're doing is you're sort of trading off the quality. So ray tracer, ray tracer is just going to get you a little bit more of that realistic, the way what they call like the way that subdivisions and shadow fall offs and the way that it light bounce and all these things that you're going to get. If you compare up, it's apples and oranges, right? So it depends on, again, what you're doing with it. V-Ray is more of that sort of polished, finished rendering versus something where I just want to kick off some early stage views really quickly to kind of get a sense of where this could go, which I think an Enscape or a Lumion would do well at. Sorry, Matt, I cut you off. I'll let you finish that one.
No. I was basically, saying the same thing. We had some questions in the chat here. One was about flipping those back faces. He's using either orient faces or reverse faces.
Reverse faces, yeah.
Yeah. So if you have one face that's faced the right way and then a bunch of other ones incorrectly, you can click the correctly oriented one and say orient faces. Then all the connected ones will switch to that. Or if you select certain faces and then just want to reverse them, flip which side is the front and which side is the back, reverse faces. Is going to do that. We had a question about the dotted line on the floor. So that is a tag, and then you switch the tag to that dash, as you can see it here, X grid.
Oh yeah, that will, first of all, lines won't render in V-Ray. So this is a placeholder. When I first built this thing, where I was just building it on a 3x3 grid, it was just something I just kind of thought was a nice proportion. So you can see that, like, placing these furniture, like placing the furniture elements and thinking about spacing and stuff like that. That was sort of what kept me organized. So that technically, won't be there when we're done here. That's a good question.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost done. We just have to do, I'm not sure why there we go. Sometimes if you have a material that's painted on the inside and then you try to paint it on the outside, it may not paint on the outside. So that's why I kind of just by default use this extension material tools, remove some from selection. It removes it from both the inside faces and it removes it from the outside container. So then when I paint, I can paint on the outside of the container if I want everything within that subgroup or component to be the same material. In this case, I'm saving myself some time by just keeping my materials palette relatively simple. So you can see I've got a flooring material, concrete walk, concrete wall, so two different grays. You'll see why in a second. Metal, which is going to be this black polished or blurry, maybe powder coated or something, steel, and then wood, which is going to be something like a birch plywood, something like that. So what else? What am I missing? Did I miss anything? Oh, you know what I missed? You guys no one said anything, probably because I can't hear people in the chat and I can't read the small print, is going in and reapplying. I didn't really need to take this material out. I probably shouldn't have. Which is, don't want to do that. Let's see here. Let's do this. Is going in and doing these little wall panels, these little wall modules. and then the little benches. So I put the benches, I wanted this little countertop, almost like to sit in the window, where you could sit in the window. And since I wanted that to repeat on all of them, I went ahead and just placed it inside of the wall component, so that way it showed up on all of them. So whether or not you need them back there where the baristas are, I don't know. It's extra storage. I feel like that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, nice to have an extra shelf.
Yeah. So that's
just
wood.
for
That's
leaning
wood.
on. Although if you have time to lean, you have time to clean, of course.
I actually worked at a drugstore, fun fact, and actually enjoyed, they call it facing, where you have to go through the aisles and you turn and make sure that you pull the cans from the back and you pull them to the front, and then you face the labels. So when you see like my tag organization, you're like, oh, makes sense. I understand now.
He's been facing again.
He's been facing, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
So this is it. So this is pretty close to where we left off last time. I did a few things, excuse me, differently. I finished the interior. I added this little storage shelf so you could buy coffee beans. I added this little module here, again, so that it kind of separates the sitting area from where the queuing would be. And then I added these little roof, I put in these little roof, I'm just calling it maybe this is where insulation would go, or this is where you'd put your piping and your plumbing. So it's just really kind of a wood lattice or a wood beam detail. That's, maybe it's for decorative. And then these little circle lights are kind of fun. I thought, well, we're going to need to light this place, so let's put some circle lights in. And because this is the spot, let's go circle. Let's break this sort of grid with something a little bit more round. So that's it.
Bring in the spots.
That's it. So
you did have one comment here, just quick, from Mark on Facebook, reminding you to save,
yes. So I will say this, and I'm not happy to say this, but you brought it up, Mark, is that, like, I don't know what it is, but I also am too excited for 2024 to come out, because, like, I've got some extension or some setting on my computer that is 2023 and I are not always getting along, so it may crash on me, and I'm okay with that, but I've come to kind of terms with that. So I do save, because sometimes I'll get a crash when I'm really trying to do something crazy. So thank you for the reminder.
I have one more thing, and then I'll let you get to it. We had a question about your graphics card. Colin suggested, because you're on a work Mac, you probably have AMD. If you have you have an Intel Mac, do you know, or do you have?
Yeah, I've got the Radeon Pro. I'm on the old Intel Mac from 2017, so it could be that there's something that's something there. Okay.
But yeah, that was just an unrelated question about what graphics card you're using. But there you go. Let's get some rendering going.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah. So let's do this. So here's what I did. I just spent this time. We need to swap these materials. So again, I probably should have had the materials done in advance of this, but hey, whatever. So what we need to do is switch those out. So we need to find some materials that we want to replace. So right now, everything that's black is going to be metal. So let's go into V-Ray instead of SketchUp's material browser. And then this material 10, I'm going to rename this because, again, facing products on the drugstore shelves. I'm going to call this planting. And then what we're going to do is come over here to this black one, and I'm going to call this black steel, for lack of a better word. This kind of tannish one is going to be plywood. Can everyone see that? My head's not blocking it. And then this ground plane one is, I'm just going to call this wood flooring. This will help us later again. This darker concrete, this kind of medium gray concrete, is going to be concrete wall. That's going to be different from this one, which is going to be called concrete pave. If I can spell it right. And then what other ones do we have? Oh, we have glass. So this one here is already called glass. Call it glazing, call it glass, call it whatever you want. I'm going to leave white alone for right now. I mean, if I want to do the white, I may go back and apply white as like a plastic or something that has like a satin finish, but I'm just going to let white be white right now. And I might come back and regret that later. But I'm not going to replace materials in the landscape, because we're going to replace the trees completely. So the trees, the whole thing will get swapped out. So now let's go find some materials to replace them with. Save.
Smart.
Excuse me. So what we're going to do is, this is a little bit tricky. I say tricky, you get used to it, but if you're used to the way old school V-Ray works, materials are no longer in the asset editor. You find them here in the Cosmos browser. So I'm going to type in glass first. And there's some cool glasses here. I will say, pro tip, don't use glass crystal. For some reason, that has like layers and layers and layers of refraction. So unless you're going to do like a ring and you're going to zoom right into it, and you want to get that like diamond color, don't ever use crystal glass for like your architecture. It's going to, your render time will just go and crash. Just use either window neutral or glass. Glass, as opposed to window neutral, has like this little subtle blue tint to it, which I actually like. So I'm going to use just glass. So this is
Chaos Cosmos is kind of like their 3D warehouse where they have all their kind of their pre-made
they put
materials and stuff up there.
All their assets now go in there. So which we'll see, we're going to pull some other ones in a minute. Their pre-made objects, which is like their proxy objects, their HDRIs, which is their skies. Pretty much everything is now. So here's the thing, it's a little bit confusing because I called it glass and glass. There's two glasses, which is why it's numbered glass number 1. I'm going to say use as replacement. So use as replacement says I want to replace this, and then it says where do you want to replace it? I'm going to go into my SketchUp glass, and I'm going to right click this and say replace in scene. And so you probably can't see it if so now when I click on, let me see, maybe I have to replace all references. I always forget. Okay, let's try this again. Use as replacement, replace in scene. There it is. Okay, so what it did is so if I sample this glass now, what it's going to do is instead of going to my original SketchUp glass, it's going to then default to this new glass because I basically just swapped them out. This is why you want to make sure that you're not using like 15 different glass materials because then you've got to do it 15 times. We're going to do this just once. So let's sample this black steel. And we're going to go look for, I'm going to try this one. I don't know if it's going to work, but I've used this, I'm just going to use this blurry iron because I don't want it to be super shiny. So I'm going to download that, and then I'm going to import it. And then once you import it, it's in your asset editor, iron blurry, use as replacement. And then what I do is go back to black metal or black steel and say, let's see here. Let's see. Use as replacement. And find this one. Oh, I know why. It's not letting me replace it because V-Ray has this new thing where it says, it asks you if you want to edit it in V-Ray. So it basically doesn't open up the V-Ray settings if you haven't already until then. So then I'm going to say replace. I already said replace in scene, so replace in scene. And black steel, use as replacement, replace in scene. So now if I sampled that, you can see it's now taking me to iron blurry instead. So anyway, I don't think I need to say that for each one. This is the same process. Let's do plywood.
So it's setting like a reference for it, kind of. Is that how that works? Like it's referencing the other V-Ray material?
Yeah, it's just like it's almost like repointing. It says it replaces it. It literally replaces it in the model, and then because it replaces it, it then repoints, it redirects in the asset editor. So what you can't see those because I painted it black and then I replaced it with black. You can't really see in the model. Sometimes you'll see a material change in the model. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you won't, like depending on what the original material is. That's why I'm kind of going back and forth. So plywood, I'm going to say I want to find plywood here, use as replacement, and then make sure that I've got plywood. And I'm going to same thing, dodo. You need to make sure that I
edit it in V-Ray.
Yep, replace in scene. There it is. So you can see that one changed. You can actually see that it replaced it with just the material. Some you won't see that material. So let's look at, we need 2 concretes. Now again, some of you people out there who are used to different rendering programs, you may think like, well, this feels a bit cumbersome. And I'll say, I won't disagree with you, but I will say that I also don't mind it so much. I think that you're just kind of, you get in the zone, and when you know your routine, you know which materials you like, you know where to find them, you bring them in, you replace them. You can also have a file that has assets that still retain this information. So if you're using the same kind of wall, you can always just sample from a model that you've already built. You don't have to go through this process of finding them like I am. So again, if this is something where it's part of your part of your routine, use as replacement. There are ways to speed this process up. Again, I don't really mind it just because it's kind of like therapeutic. It's kind of like meditative. So there's that one. You can see that one replaced, right? I know that you only have, I know that the window that I'm showing you is only this big because I've got all my assets up. Last one, concrete flooring. Actually, not last one. I think it's the second to last one. We need a concrete floor, and we have to kind of decide how reflective that we want it. Because I do like reflection because it does give us, if you want to see a little bit more detail, you can click on it. And I'm going to go with that one. Let's give that a shot. I'm going to download it. I'm going to import it. So Matt, have you ever used V-Ray?
Once or twice. But I can get into trouble pretty quick where I don't know what I'm doing, and then I'm like, get some unwanted results, and then I just, have no idea how to fix it, and I'm like, okay, well, forget it. Just regular SketchUp view will do for this,
Yeah, I do tend to. I guess I enjoy getting into trouble. Okay, you know what I didn't do is I didn't show you what it looks like before we applied the materials, and that's okay. So I just want to show you really quick that I'm starting completely from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and press this button, which makes me a little nervous, but I'm going to press this one. It's going to say, do you want to revert all your render settings? Yes, not my materials. It's just going to revert your render settings. So I'm going to go ahead and revert those render settings. What it means is render settings, like if you set exposure values or if you set your camera type or your output resolution, anything that's applied to the actual render, it's going to do that. So what I want to do is do a few things. I want to turn my denoiser on. So a denoiser is what a denoiser is. It takes the noise out of a rendering, so it kind of softens it at the end. I want to look at the render output. For now, I'm going to match the viewport. So I want to, whatever I see in the viewport, I want to make sure it shows up in the render, although I might change the proportion of the final render once we pick a camera view. Global illumination, ambient occlusion. I like ambient occlusion, just gives a little bit of definition where those sort of edges come together and on curved organic objects. And then the size I'm going to leave alone, drop the quality slider all the way down. So that's pretty much it. That's how I would, those are just like my default render settings. I leave pretty much everything else alone because like you, Matt, I like to live dangerously, but I don't like to go too far into that
That doesn't sound very dangerous.
I sometimes
cautiously dangerous.
I think about sometimes living dangerously.
Sure. I like it. We had one question about materials in V-Ray. Will you need to adjust the material scale and edge mapping? Is that something you
can, but for this, just to keep things moving, I'm probably not going to. I'm probably going to just use it as is and hope that the default settings get me close enough. That's kind of the story with me, is that a lot of this stuff is like just it's not meant to be perfect. It's just meant to kind of convey an idea. And so if we can get close enough, we're good. I forgot two materials. We need wood planks for the floor, and we need some landscape vegetation. So let's do that again.
Very good. And then we also had a question here. Aaron on Facebook says, talking about your black steel material, and said, black steel, what is that, from Zoolander?
Black steel. That's blue steel, but I think I'm going to adopt that as like my code name or something like that, is black steel. That sounds pretty cool. All right, I need a grass.
You do tend to wear black shirts a lot, so you could be black steel.
I do. I was thinking more about like no, I won't go there. I was thinking
just your soul.
Yeah, something. I was going a little deeper with where the color black comes in, but let's not go there on this stream.
Okay.
So what I want to do is I wanted to grab this grass one, and then I found one called grass, and I'm going to use that as a replacement, and then I'm going to find my original grass. If I can't find it, then I will just sample. It's probably easier for me to just sample it. So if I can find, planting. That's why I can't find it, because I called it planting. Replace and scene, that replaced. And then the last one, and I'm going to say this last, it may not be the last one, which is wood. I want to do wood flooring. We got to think about the coloring. Do we want the warm wood that's going to compete with the birch plywood? Do we want to go something completely different, something really dark? I think I'm going to extend the planks out into this area, but if I don't like that, we can just sample the concrete and just say actually wood is only inside and concrete is only outside. But I do like this idea of extending. Maybe they're actually like ceramic plank, you know, something where it looks like wood, but it can be indoor outdoor. So we almost like carry that paving all the way through. I think it ties these two spaces together.
Yeah.
You've
Classy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is wood planks. I'm gonna go with this one. This may not be the right one, but let's just go with it. And so this material. Yeah, no, go ahead. You can talk over me. It's fine. I'm just talking to myself.
Eric and I, for the viewers, were having a conversation before the stream started about how basically I'm just here to interrupt him for the whole 2 hours. You probably get a lot more done without me just butting in every 2 seconds and saying, well, I'm the voice of the people here. So actually, people will probably be on my side because I get to read the comments out. You would never respond to the comments if I didn't say anything. So
I would try, but then I would have to take lots of breaks, and then I would say, okay, comment break, and then we would scrub through, and it wouldn't be. I wish you could. I don't wish this. I say this. You could ask me directly, like I could hear your comment, so that way I could keep my eyes on what I'm doing.
I know there are streamers that do that will do,
but I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't
text
know about our band, our little merry band of what I call the usual suspects. I don't know if we want to let them all chime in. You know, I think keeping them to the chat is good. And I love you all for when I say that.
Most of the ones I've seen are like you pay to get it read aloud. Although, of course, we don't have a monetized channel, so that wouldn't really work for us. Everything's free here on SketchUp YouTube.
We are.
One last question before we move on. R. James on Twitter said, your SketchUp model looks clean. Do you ever use 3D Warehouse? And I think for this, none of this was from 3D Warehouse. Is that?
That's true. Right? This was all modeled. You got to go back and watch those live streams. We modeled everything from scratch. That was the whole point of this. It was to test us. The only thing that would be the exception would be if you look inside the bar counter, Aaron put in a croissants, a point of sale system. Like that wasn't the point, was to model that from scratch. So he did end up putting a 3D Warehouse. I ended up putting some bags of coffee that I found in 3D Warehouse. These trees are obviously didn't model those from scratch. These trees that you see here, they're just in my default library. I'll pull those in anytime I do a model that needs trees. So
yeah, but most of it's modeled.
Let's test. Let's do it. Render this thing.
There we go.
I'm going to go to my render settings. That's what we're here for. That's what we've been waiting for. Took us 30 minutes to get to a point. Hey, that's pretty good. In 30 minutes, we can start to render. All right, you know, it's something. You can see we've got some reflections happening here. You can see we've got some bump happening. You can see the bump map on the concrete wall where where the form work is. So that's kind of nice. You can see a little bit of that blurry iron. A big thing here, this is kind of fun. I modeled these bricks here as components, and you'll notice that they're not showing up because these bricks, when I modeled them, I did them as components, but I did them as 2D. So we could go and apply a brick material to this, or this is kind of a SketchUp poll. Or we can see if we can actually make this look good using physical bricks. Now, of course, this adds geometry to the model, but I don't know. We did say we were going to live a little dangerously today, didn't we, Matt? So,
totally.
Or we could compare the two. I don't know how long it would take, but we could also look at, well, which one do we think gives us a better result? So what I want to do is get into one of these. I only need to get into one because it's a component. So if I can get outliner, this would be a good excuse to bring outliner in. I'm going to bring this out. I'm going to go with ½ an inch. I know that you wouldn't do that in real life. The grout would be a lot less, but I do want to kind of exaggerate that for shadow. And then I think I'm going to go in and do something like paint the walls, not the brick, but paint the actual walls underneath them like a light gray, almost like a subway tile, so that you can actually see the bricks. And it would be like the mortar. Would that be the mortar joint? Where are my construction folks? Let's go with just ever so light gray. Let's see, does that do it on all of them? No, because I did these wall panels in different pieces, so now...
Who modeled this?
Who modeled this thing? I know, this is... Well, actually, you know what? It's not bad, to be honest with you. It's not bad. It's not a bad model.
No, it's not good, but it's not bad. I'm just kidding, of course. We did have first of all, we had one vote for physical brick, so you're on the right track there.
All right.
And we had one question from Muhammad on YouTube of, can you show your style settings? They like how your model looks just with the default, or not the default, but whatever SketchUp style you're using. So maybe when you have a moment just to look at that. I know one thing that you do is change your line color away from the default, which is black, right, to like a little bit of a lighter.
Yes. So I'll share with you some secrets of the pros. So I have different styles set up. So I have a color by tag set up. I have black and white set up. I have usually a color with sometimes I'll take the textures out. And then of course I have it with or without sky, with or without materials. So that's sort of the long answer, but the short answer is profiles set to 1. So profiles are on, so you can see them on rounded objects and organic objects. But if I set them to 2, for example, let me show you what that looks like. Let's just kind of zoom into these chairs, and I'll pop those up to 2. So you can see everything looks thicker and beefier. And then also when you're doing a lot of orbiting, sometimes those profiles will regen. So I'll set those profiles to 1, so I don't have to, so it looks nice and thin. And then the color, I will back off on the color of the line. So sometimes, depending on the model, I might back way off and go something like a medium gray. I often kind of stay, if you're in a Mac and you have these crayons, then I'm kind of in that sort of steel to iron range, or even maybe going as far as tungsten, which is just like a charcoal gray. So you can see the difference. You can see what happens here when you go to something like a solid black. Like solid black, it starts to read a little heavy. And then if you go to something like a light material, of course, the whole thing lightens up. So I kind of like to find that middle ground balance area somewhere in between. Does that work? Oh, and then shadow settings is a big difference too. Shadow settings is one more. So to get true color, if you want to see what the true color is, you want to set your shadows to 0 and 90. Now the only difference, the only problem with that is if you turn your shadows on, they won't show up because they're at 0. So if you go back to do something like this, if you play with your darkness and lightness sliders and you turn your shadows on, of course you will get shadows because you now have a sun source. So you have a light and a dark side of your model. So you're no longer true material color, and you can kind of play with how dark or how light you want that, depending on whether you like the light shadows. It's harder to see on a colored model, but when you're on a black and white model, yeah. So that's that. So if you do that, of course, your colors in your model are going to look a little bit different depending on what angle you look at it, depending on what sun angle that you have.
Love it.
Hope that answers.
Yeah, thanks for indulging the styles tangent. That was great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's do this. Let's try and render this thing. Oh, I just did a render, didn't I? So let's render it again. Let's see if those bricks did anything or not. So I'm going to open up my, yeah, there it is. So let me see, do I have my history saved? I don't. So if I was smart, I would have, I'm just going to screenshot this just to be safe. But what I'm going to do is come over here to options, and then you can set your history. So you can, and then what it'll do is when I render it, that it'll just keep track of those. So we can slide back and forth between seeing the brick or not seeing the brick. So let's just go ahead and render that one and see what happens. So you can definitely see the difference. It's from this distance, it looks just like a 2D texture. So that effort of going into 3D maybe doesn't help us all that much unless you kind of were taking, you took something like a really close angle. But even then, I don't know that I would do that. I don't know that there's a reason to do that. Then when you get up close, you can definitely see that level of detail. That's why just kind of a material with a bump map usually is good enough, because it's going to be in the background anyway. All right. So let's go into lighting. Let's move into lighting so we can get something that feels like a finished render by the end of this session. There's 2 types of lighting. You can see here on my cheat sheet on the left is we can do artificial or environmental. I like to do environmental first because it tells you what time of day it is, it tells you where the light source is, and that might make your decisions, what you do inside, different. You may or may not turn your lights on, you may not make them as bright. So what we're going to do is we're going to go outside first. So as you can see, if I pull that frame buffer up, the default just kind of gray albedo, sort of the gray ground to the blue sky. That's sort of the default. So let's check, let's figure out what some options might be. So what I want to do is kind of set this here, and then I'm going to pop in and I'm going to override my materials. All of them except my glass. So glass, I want to say, cannot be overridden, because when you're doing a lighting study, it's actually good to be able to see through glass and reflect from glass, and you'll see why in just a second. So let's do that. Save. We're going to add a dome light. So yeah, please interrupt me, Matt. Keep with questions. We're going to, in order to add environmental lighting, we need a light source, which is not the default sun and sky. In V-Ray, we have the default sun and sky, and that is basically taking whatever the sun and sky is from your SketchUp model. So if you move the sun in SketchUp, your V-Ray sun will move because it is tied to, you can always say, you can detach it and you can override what SketchUp is telling you to do. But in this case, I'm actually going to turn the sun off, and we can do two different things. Is if we're only interested in lighting, we could do this thing called light gen, which is really fun. It only takes a minute. So let me, can you humor me here, Matt?
Yeah, let's gen it up, dude.
So let's see if it'll let me do this. All right, let's just do 9. It's just for, so you can do interior or exterior. And the reason why it's interior exterior, because obviously the exposure values and the light intensity and all that stuff is going to be a little bit different. But so let's assume we want to take an exterior for now. Let's generate a couple different options. 9, in this case, 9 different options. Or you can seed 50 or 60 or 70 if you want. And you can see what it's doing is it's creating a variation of the sun and sky. And it's, oh, I made a mistake. I said sun and sky. I wanted to do HDRI. So HDRI is going to bring clouds and all that other stuff too, which is going to be fun. So let's do, we don't want 35 unique styles. That's going to take forever. Let's do something like 4 and 3 and see what happens. Let's generate 12 different ones.
So this is kind of randomly pulling different,
creating, it's moving the sun up
scenarios.
and down, like its height. So if it's lower in the sky, you're going to get sunsets, either dawn or dusk. If it's higher in the sky, it's going to be just bright daytime. So if you just want to do just a really quick, just kind of look and feel and see what might be kind of cool, you can see here what it's doing is generating 12 different kind of random seeds. And then you can look at them and then you can just say, well, let's see what that looks like. So what I'm going to do really quick before I do that is, oh, not that one. View tool palettes, V-Ray objects. There's one object that I need. It's an infinite plane right there. And I'll show you why in just you'll see why.
This light gen thing would even be cool for like conceptual design. Like, you know, when you design a building, it's going to exist through all, you know, times of day and, you know, lighting conditions and stuff like that. So to see it just quickly visualize in all those different scenarios seems like it would be helpful to see those for conceptual.
Yeah, and I want to show you something really quick here. This is where you get to look at how the materials and the light start working together. So like when the sun is higher, again, it might create a big reflection on the ground. When it's lower, it might not, or it might be a smoother or a softer. It won't be so intense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two different ones. I'm going to do this one where the sun is sort of off to the right and setting, and then I want to do. Let's compare that to what it looks like if the sun is on the other side and setting. So I'm going to render that again, and I want to show you something kind of cool. So I'm running, you can see I'm just doing these as relatively quick, low resolution render tests. And the reason why is because I'm just cycling, I'm just playing around right now. And then what's kind of cool is that in the history, if you've enabled your history, you can do what's called AB. So AB slider, an AB slider is you can just compare, almost like if you wanted to drill in and just look at like just how the light affects this logo, you can just slide it and then you can start to get a sense. Remember, we don't have context, we don't have trees, vegetation in. This is just kind of getting a sense of like, where do I want the light to come in from if I'm doing an exterior render? What do you
Yeah,
think? What
very
do you
cool.
think, Matt? Do you have a preference?
Like which lighting scenario I
Yeah,
like better?
not saying that we have to go with either of these, and just kind of was just testing it to see what happens.
I mean, I tend to like things backlit, but
Is that more backlit for you?
yeah,
Okay,
but I
all right.
mean,
Let's keep
I
that
don't
in.
have to be the person who's deciding that.
No, 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 you do.
I can't
Unless
commit. I'm just scared of commitment.
no, I'm gonna put you on the spot. That's it. Now that you said that. Um,
Speaking of the sun, we did have a question about changing the sun position of the V-ray sun. Is that something that you control in V-ray, or is that how does that work?
most of the time, what you'll do is let's do that. That's a good question. Let's go in and I'm going to override my materials. It's just going to make this a little bit quicker if you override the materials for this. And then I'm going to do what's called an interactive render. So interactive render means that it means I can change things in the model. Oh, it's kind of weird. They changed this setting, so now it shows it as a viewport render. So watch, when I change, oh, you know what I need to do is I need to disable the dome light and I need to re-enable the sunlight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the sunlight is using SketchUp's sun information, like shadow
Yeah,
information.
yeah, exactly. And then I'm going to compensate for the exposure. I think the dome light has this new thing where oh, there we go. Okay, how's that look? That looks pretty good, right? So
Yeah.
this is the default sun and sky. So if you can see what's happening here is if I move the sun, the V-ray sun changes. So now it's like sunset. You can see it doesn't give you those cool clouds and it doesn't give you that super pink sky. And it's not really giving you a lot of options. You can add
Yeah.
clouds to the default sky if you want to. I just think using an HDRI is kind of the way to go.
But I guess this is accurate for wherever you geolocate. So if you wanted
Yep.
to see it like a shadow study or something like that, this would be good for that.
Yep. Good call. So let's do this. Let's go inside. I'm going to get rid of those. I'm just going to hide them. Maybe I'm going to put them on a frozen tag because I might go back and use those. So I'm going to create a new tag and call that frozen. And I'm going to move those to those because I don't really want to dump anything, but I'm also, let's go ahead and do an interior. Let's try the interior. So my camera FOV should be nice and wide. Let's try something like 50. And let's go ahead and get ourselves a cup of coffee, folks.
Ooh.
So
I'm gonna queue up and get some Joe.
we've got two options here. We can either stand as if we've just entered. So if I turn my section cut on, that helps it a little bit. We can either pretend like we're following this lady in. Remember, this is storytelling. So it shouldn't be a random view. We can kind of tell the entry experience. We can do a 1-point perspective, which is kind of cool. Matt, I don't know how you feel about 1-point perspectives, but sometimes, depending on the design, it can be kind of powerful.
Well, especially because that espresso maker is right in the middle, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's all eyes on that espresso maker, man.
The other option is we go from the corner, almost as if you're sitting in one of these chairs, and you can see the entry, so you can see where people are coming and going, and you like to people watch, so you have a swivel stool. And so, what do you think? I mean, should we do this corner, or do you want to do the 1 point and try and put that awesome? Oh, here. We just move this over.
I like the people watching story. So yeah, let's do I'm the swivel chair. I get one coffee and I sit in there for 2 hours and just watch people come and go.
All right, so we're going to add this scene, and I have to be careful because when I have working scenes, I disable the camera location. So I have to always remember that if I add a new scene and I'm on a working scene. So we're going to call this perspective interior 01, just assuming that we do more than one. So let's do this. Let's get one more dome light. This one's going to be a little bit different than the one that we did before. We're going to do this from an external file. So I downloaded a few of these. These are called HDRI files. They can also go by EXRs. So this is a multi-layered image file that actually has different exposures of. So you get this dynamic range of light, just like you would in the real world, and it's built into the metadata of this file. So it's a very specific kind of image. And when you have that layer data, you can use those as a lighting source. So let's try that.
I like it. And also,
Thanks,
like
Matt.
Patrick's suggestion on YouTube, it says suggestions for music playing in the coffee shop.
Oh yeah.
What would you put on the playlist? Not necessarily you don't have to answer this, but in the chat, let us know what would you be on your coffee shop playlist if you could control the speakers in the spot here, or if you have if you have music that you like listening to in the
that question's been asked before. It's a good question. I always answer it the same way. There's this guy on YouTube. He's goes by DJ Vista, and he just spins like 3 hours of like new wave remixes of like new wave dance mixes. So
that could be the soundtrack to our shop here.
There you go. How do I see which icons? This would make it easier. I've got to pick which one where I want to place this, and I don't know which one because I haven't tested any of these. So I'm just going to go with putting it here. Let's try this one.
Untested. That sounds dangerous.
Untested. We are in new, uncharted territory, folks. I do not know if this is going to work. I'm going to bump the exposure up a little bit, even though it's been untested. I do know the HDRIs, they do tend to come in, depending on the source, they come in dark. And so you want to sort of bring that intensity up by default. So can we do an interior render, Matt?
We can. I hope we can.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Let's do it. I like the way this is going. I like that we're jiving, you and me. You know, I ask you questions, you tell me what to do. I don't have to think so hard. It's a little bit like backseat.
I love it. I could tell you what to do all day.
Good. I know you could. Okay.
Go order me a coffee. Sorry.
Sure. You'll have it in 3 days. It'll be cold by the time it gets to where you are. Matt and I are not in the same location. I don't know if you guys know this. Okay. So I'm going to stop.
To pay the electric bill.
I'm going to stop that because I have an infinite plane that I actually want to turn off. The infinite plane is a ground plane, but in this case, I'm bringing in the ground from. You can see the environmental, the HDRI that I brought in isn't just a light source. It's actually also the background image as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's why you play with that intensity. Not only will it make the light more intense, but it'll also make it'll also give you either a blown out or sort of a more in focus background. I may actually want to blow the background out a little bit more because in an interior, think about your exposure. If you're exposed to an interior, think about a photograph you've taken. Chances are you're not able to see the interior and the exterior at the same time unless you're using some sort of fancy lens or something like that. So I'm going to push that dome light up to something like 100, and I may, hey, that's actually, this brings up a good question. In V-Ray, there's this cool thing called Light Mix. So Light Mix actually lets you change the lighting after you've rendered, which is kind of insane. It'll re-render it, but it'll only re-render with that light that you've changed. So it's almost like real-time rendering, because so you don't have to worry so much about getting everything perfect, like right now. So, but speaking of getting everything perfect, we do have a couple more things we need to do. We need lights. Matt, we're inside. I like this interior. I think the shot's kind of cool. I feel like it's focusing a little too much on the door, but if I turn, so if we want to, we can swing it, but I'm just going to go with it because we kind of need to keep going. So let's just assume, maybe it's just doing something, bringing in some vegetation, just outside of the view. So we've got some green. We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a couple different ways. I want to turn this, see these circle rings? Let's start here. There's two ways to make these glow. One of them is to apply an emissive material to this, and the other one is to make it what's called a mesh light. So a mesh light is basically a mesh, an object, turning into a light. So it becomes a light source. It glows. Same as applying an emissive material. So I'm going to try that first and see if that works. So you can tell it's a mesh light because it applies this little V-Ray widget box around it. So if I scale this just for fun, you can see that little icon that basically tells you this is a mesh light now.
It's a dead giveaway of a mesh light.
Dead giveaway. And if you want to be super clear, you can come into your mesh light like I am here, and you can call this circle overhead lights, whatever you want to call it. And then again, same thing. I'm going to bump the intensity up, but chances are to something like 100, but chances are, and maybe make that a little bit on the warmer Kelvin scale. This is the Kelvin scale, by the way. So if you're wanting cool or warm, you can use this bottom slider. I don't really know that much about Kelvin. I haven't really met him myself. I hear he's a good guy.
Okay. Very good.
Very good. Did you like that? Okay.
Yeah.
You're like, you can't see Matt. He's shaking his head right now. He's like, okay. What are we doing? What are we doing next? Oh, we need some more lights. So let's go ahead and do these. Aaron actually did a great job. He built these little lights here. He was smart. So I'm going to select, and because he made them a component, thank you, Aaron. Shout out. I'm going to select all of them. And I'm going to take the materials tools. I'm going to remove from selection. And I'm going to grab this. I'm going to go in and I want to just paint the frame with the black. Now I'm not going to paint this one because this is where I want to apply. I could make this a mesh light or an emissive material just to compare and contrast the two. Let's go ahead and make this an emissive material. So I'm going to make that yellow. It's going to come over here. I'm just going to call this light emissive. And then from there, add what's called emissive. So in this case, you don't really need to worry about what that base color is anymore because it's really actually about the emission. So if you want that warmer Kelvin glow, I always think of Home Alone when I hear Kelvin.
Not Calvin and Hobbes.
Oh, Calvin and Hobbes is a good one too. So that's an emissive light. So we're going to look at the difference and see, and then here's the intensity. I don't know what the intensity should be. I'm going to bump it up, and then obviously we can take it back down. I'll bump it to like 5, just so that we can see it. And then the last thing I want to do is while I'm inside this component, now that takes care of the glow of the source, but it's not actually going to cast very much because an emissive material is not super bright. And if you do it super bright, you're going to blow it out. So this would be a good opportunity to bring a spot and place a spot inside of that lamp. And luckily, again, it's a component. It does it to all of them. So then back.
So you're putting spots inside the spot.
You're putting me on the spot with answering that question. So yes, I'm going to make this super bright, like 100,000.
Whoa!
I know, a little warmer on the Kelvin scale. Not too warm. I like white light in a retail setting. 100,000. Why bump it up so much? I don't know why. Spots typically tend to be. Actually, it's maybe not the spots. Maybe that's too much. I'll go to something like 10,000. But IES lights tend to be, and spotlights to me tend to not show up. So you almost have to like exaggerate the scale. And it also depends on your units, whether you're putting in proper lumens or something like that. That's way above my pay grade. So I don't know actually what any of that means.
But you don't need to make a pretty image.
I don't need to. Remember what was our motto, folks, when we first started? Close enough, right?
Good
enough. Good enough,
Yeah.
exactly. Close enough is good enough. We are trying to get to close enough in this case. So let's go ahead and press render and see what happens. The only thing that I need to change is if I'm going to do if we're going to material override, we have to go back and check that new emissive material that we just did, which is if I can't find it, I can so light emissive. You want to basically say can be overridden. So a material override will override that because now the light source is a material. So in order for it to show, if you're doing materials override, you need to say don't override this, please.
So that's just a checkbox. It was right behind your head. That's a checkbox at the bottom of the material.
Yeah, let me open that up again. If you go to that one, there's this, if I slide it over just a little bit, you can say can be overridden. This checkbox can be overridden. I want to make sure that it cannot be overridden because I don't want it overridden.
Very cool. Oh, we also had a question earlier about will there be another live stream? We do the live streams every week. They're not necessarily always on rendering, but all the recordings of all the streams you can see them on our YouTube channel. So check them out and tune in next week and this week for more live modeling and rendering content.
Yep, we don't render every time. For those folks that are joining us from a source, if you're not our regular, rendering is something that we do kind of on occasion. V-Ray, for those that don't know, is included in our studio bundle. We're not supposed to use the word bundle. Our studio offering. And we also just have a long-standing partnership with Chaos Group, who makes V-Ray. So V-Ray isn't SketchUp's, doesn't own SketchUp. It is an extension that you can purchase separately, like if you're on a Mac and you don't have a Windows PC, so you may not want to go get the Studio Bundle, which is for PCs. In this case, you may want to, either way, there's different options.
We had a question earlier about V-Ray for Mac and when it first came out. They said they thought V-Ray was only for Windows. Has it always been for both, or has it? Do you remember when the first version of V-Ray for Mac that you used was?
I don't know. I've been using it for quite a while now. So it's been for Mac for quite a while. So cool. it's been I don't know. They've supported Mac for quite a while. The only thing is, I will say, be careful with Macs, is because, as you know, all the buzz around NVIDIA GPUs. Well, it turns out that NVIDIA GPUs are built for game engines, but also they're great for rendering And so, if you have PC, then you can tap into your NVIDIA chip, you may get a performance boost. So if you are a Mac like me, you just have to understand that you're going to push your CPU. So I don't know how that compares though. Of course, now with the new metal architecture, like the M3s, I hear they scream. I don't have one. Aaron, if you're listening, I don't have an M3, so I can't compare. What I want to do really quick is view. This thing is called color clamping. So if you've seen any of my videos on SketchUp Campus, I do go through this a little bit slower in more detail. Shout out to SketchUp Campus. We do have 2 courses, one for exterior getting started if you're just new to V-Ray, and one for rendering realistic interiors. So all the stuff that I'm just sort of blitzing over, we actually at the end, maybe I'll pull up, if we have time, I'll pull that course up so you can see it. But basically, so color clamping, what forced color clamping is it shows you the areas that are overexposed. I'm going to move this up because I know it does overlap with the chat a little bit. So what it means is that if you pull your highlight burn down, you can pull what's being overexposed down. Of course, I want my lamps. I do know that there is going to be some burn coming in from outside, just because of the difference between an interior and an exterior. So I think that's okay. But if you are just feeling like it doesn't feel realistic, or if you feel like it's being blown out, then you want to basically bring your highlight burn down. So I can go ahead and turn that off, color clamping. So again, you can see it. There's another way to see it on top of your model. So you want to find that balance. You don't want to get rid of everything completely. I think maybe a little bit of that burn where it's appropriate, like on your bright light sources, is a good thing. So sorry, I'm kind of nerding out a little bit.
No, totally. Yeah, it adds to the realism. I mean, if you take a photo in the real world and it's looking directly into a light bulb, it's going to blow out a little bit.
Yeah. The other thing too, of course, is you can always come in and override. I tend not to get my light perfect because I sometimes will just push the exposure value. You can also change your camera's aperture. I try not to go into the camera settings too much, but just like a real camera would, you can come in and and adjust that exposure. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, we can also we can add more interior lighting, and then that would allow us to sort of keep the exposure down. So I'm going to try this. So bear with me. I think it's worth the effort. Let's add one more light. Now this light isn't meant to be coming from a light source. Oh, speaking of which, I did plug light mix. So light mix is basically I can control each light, and I can see not only what it looks like on and off, but I can see the effect. So if I wanted to, for some reason, to turn off the dome light and I wanted to see what it would look like with only lighting my interior lights, I might come in here and bump this up to something like 5. See what that circle light, by going 5 times the intensity on my circle lights, you can see that let me go back to 1 so you can see that. That's what it was at 1. And then I can come back in on my circle overhead lights and bump those way up. And I think that actually looks pretty good. Spotlights, I can do the same thing with the spotlights. I shouldn't have sunlight. Oh, I might leave the sunlight in. I accidentally left the sunlight in, so I have both the sunlight and the dome light. But the sunlight's actually creating this kind of cool little glow coming in from the window. You really shouldn't do that, but I did it. I'm going to leave it. Spots, I'm going to put those up 5. You can see the difference. See what happened when I bumped those spots up to 5? Those versus 1. You can see that the lighting on the counter bumps way up. hope this is interesting for people out there. I know not everyone's renders, and so it's not always super interesting, but to me, it's just, it's like so many things in life. It's like the more you kind of see things and the more you kind of process how things work in real life. Like this is about a physical camera, and it's about light sources, and it's about ambient and bounce and materiality and all these things, and it just gets really fun.
Yeah, no, I love it. This light mix thing is really cool to see the
Really cool
effect. Then you can like really get an idea of what you like and what you don't like and how it works, versus just kind of everything splotched in there together and then you don't know what's going on.
I also turn on my lens effects. So lens effect is like this little halo effect. If you look close here, see how it's got kind of this little bit of a glare. I do like to see that. I may or may not turn that on at the very end, but if you turn that off, you can see it just goes back to that hard line. And I think in reality, you're always going to see just that halo that you're going to get around, whether that's with your eyes or whether that's with the camera. And if it's too much, you can just dial it back a little bit and just be like, I want that glow, but I don't want it. And that's just one of those things where it's just that little bit of realism. A lot of this just comes into, how much control you think you need or you'd like. So with that said, should we see one with the materials turned on and then see what we need to do from there?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. See, I go to Matt. I look to Matt because if you don't tell
me.
What
if I said no? Call it a day.
If you don't tell me what to do, I wouldn't know what to do. We're going to turn off material override. This is always a little bit scary for me because if I'm spending a lot of time with lighting and the lighting looks really good, and then I was like, oh crap, I've never actually looked at it with the materials on. This is the first time I'm going to be seeing the lighting and the materials. I'm a little nervous. It's like my wedding day. I'm seeing the bride. I haven't seen her. She's been getting ready like all day.
Mm-hmm. She's a model. She's in all white, just like this.
Just like this one, I know. And then everyone's watching, just like here. Everyone's watching. It's like, you're going to see her for the first time. I'm going to see her for the first time. So
You're asking for my permission?
Yeah, I am. Matt, like, can you? Yeah. All right, we need to stop that one. Okay, before we go any further, too far. Let's do this. We're going to go ahead and I'm just going to do an interactive render because I can just stop it. So I'm just going to do it. I can just see it really quickly. I don't have to wait for the whole thing to render. I don't like the viewport render though. I don't know why it's doing that. I need to ask Chaos because it shouldn't. When I have my frame buffer, I shouldn't be getting both.
Yeah.
So that's something that they did with a recent update. I mean, it's kind of cool, but then sometimes I want to keep my frame buffer. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah,
you guys tell me. But I'm just used to looking at the frame buffer, and so seeing it twice is kind of annoying. And then in order to get out of it, you have to move the camera, and then that will reset the viewport render. So I think this is pretty cool. Here's one thing you can do is we can go back to that AB, right? Do you remember AB? So I know I didn't do a full render, so it's noisy, but this is where you can start really scrutinizing like how the materials, like look right here, for example, the wood floor right at the entry. You can see the grooves in the planks. You can see the reflection, which gives us sort of more light bounce over just the white. But then again, it's also not white. Also, if this is too much white on white on white, I might want to come in here and do this. So let's get rid of the AB. We're going to do what's called we're going to do just a render of just this area here. It's called I can't remember what you call this, a region render. So when you add a dome light, where are my dome lights? Oh, I got to get rid of them. I'm overriding it. So when you have a dome light, there's this thing called use transform. I don't know why that button is not. If you're listening, Chaos, I feel like use transform should be selected by default. Use transform basically means if you rotate the dome light in the model, the actual environment around you rotates, which I think that makes sense as a default, but again, that's just me. So what it means is if I go here and I start an interactive render, watch, and then I come over here to, this is why I don't like the viewport render.
Oh,
okay, Did you see what happened?
Somebody suggested that you selected viewport in your settings.
Are you sure? I don't think so. If I go to here, there shouldn't be no, that's match viewport. That's different. No, the viewport rendering is a different thing, but I don't have time to solve it right now, so I'm just gonna go with it. So what I'm doing is I'm rotating the dome light 90 degrees. So not only are you gonna see the light source change, but you're gonna see what the background looks like. And this background may or may not be one that is really great for each camera angle. I'm just kind of taking it 90 degrees at a time, but maybe 45 would be better. What I wanna see is if there's anything, like maybe this is it looks like kind of on a college campus or maybe downtown. I don't know. Again, I can always model something if I want to block what's happening outside the door. I don't need to rely on it, but let's see. Let's do this one more time. Oh, I kind of like that. Does that look better? Which one did you like? Which one? Or maybe rotating it 75? No, I like 90. Yeah, I like it. That's kind of cool. It feels like it's part of like a university quad.
I like the campus part, yeah.
Hey guys, after class is done, I'll meet you at the spot. We'll grab a cup of joe, and then we'll head over to the spring formal. Sorry I went back in time there for a little bit. My college days, it's been a long time.
Oh, back in your frat?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see you as a frat guy for sure.
I lived in studio. We never left. We didn't do anything. We just worked. I just worked and commuted and then sat in studio all day long and then went home, and then went to sleep and then got up and repeat the whole process.
So you probably drank some coffee or tea during that time, right?
Yes. Actually, you know what? Fun fact. I didn't start drinking coffee until my senior year of college because I studied in Italy and I thought, maybe I should try espresso if I'm going to be in Italy. And since then, it turns out I like it. Go figure.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, here's what we need to do.
Here's what Italian beans. Go ahead.
Here's what we need to do, folks. I'm going to add one more light source on the inside because what I don't want to do is just bring the exposure up, because what it's going to do is it's going to bring the exposure of the... Actually, I could bring the exposure of the interior up, but then I could bring the HDRI down, or I could bring in another light source. But because this is an educational thing, let's bring in one more light source because I think that could just be an excuse to play. So what I'm doing here is this is a rectangle light. So a rectangle light is, Matt, what do you think a rectangle light is?
A light that's a rectangle?
That's exactly it. See?
Yes. Knew I was good for something in here.
So a rectangle light is good compared to like a sphere light or compared to like a spotlight. A rectangle light is good if you just want like a big uniform wash of light. Like if you were doing studio lighting or you wanted to light something top down, or if you wanted to pretend like light was coming in from a window, like you wanted more light coming in from one window, you might actually place a rectangle light. And what it's going to do is it's just basically a big uniform plane. And so what I wanted to do is just kind of light, whoops, I thought I had copied this. So what happens when you talk, Matt, is that I'm talking and I'm not actually modeling properly. What I wanted to do was basically take both of these and give it a just like almost like light the ceiling down, so that we just get more light into the space and we don't have to worry about whether it's coming from outside the window or it's coming from one of my ring lights. I don't want to keep bumping the intensity of those up and I don't want to overexpose the camera. So let's just try that and see. So I'm going to go back to my interior. I'm going to find my rectangle light. I'm going to leave it at something like 50. I don't want to go too high. I do want this to be, under options, invisible. So again, by default, a rectangle light, you actually see the light, but in this case, we don't. We just want to see the source. We don't want there to be, we don't want to see the light, and we may or may not want to affect reflections. So what that means is that if we have really reflective material and you have a square light, you're going to see a square light reflected back at you. So I don't think our stuff is that reflective, so I think we're probably okay. So let's go.
As a person who does photography, I'm like, it would be so nice to have a light that is invisible. Like they need to invent that for the real world.
Oh.
Give me a huge softbox light, but that doesn't show up in my photo, you know?
All right, so here it is again. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to region render just this top part. And the reason why is because you can see the ceiling just kind of looks a little bit dark. So what I want to do is come over here into my light settings, my rectangle light, and push that to like 200. Let's see what happens. Okay, can you see? I don't know if you can see it. Maybe I just need to like really push it. Okay, I'm going to push it And then what we can do is, because we have light mix, we can always go back and dial it back down.
Is it because it's emitting down? Is that why it's not?
No, it is. It
Oh,
should
it is
be.
lighting up that top part. Okay.
Yeah. Oh no, it's lighting down. You're right. Okay, so I want to stop that render. Let's do a let's just, for the record, let's just do a non-interactive. So I could do an A/B comparison. So it's going to build the light cache. It's going to render so you can see what's happening with the render times. The more that we're bringing in high poly assets, the more that we're bringing in reflective surfaces, the more we're bringing in lights that have sort of settings, and then they start interacting with each other, the more we're going to see that render time just slowly start to notch up, and that's okay. It's still pretty quick. I think I'm okay. Maybe I'm old school. I'm okay if it takes a few minutes to render. Usually that's when I do go get a cup of coffee and be like, I'm going to press render. It's going to take about 10 minutes. I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee, come back.
Yeah, it's good to stretch your legs every once in a while. You don't want to be, hunched over for 8 hours.
Yeah, so Matt, while this is rendering, what's going on in the chat?
People talking about that the rectangle lights are similar to a softbox. Sudi RT Cool said that he's made a softbox light disappear from a picture, so that invisible picture thing is possible. Maybe talking about the Photoshop, the generative fill. I don't know if you've messed with that, using the AI fill. Very helpful. Yeah, not too much. Some bride puns from when we were talking back about the wedding thing. But yeah, I think people are just rapt with attention, seeing all the cool, people aren't used to such nice materiality and lighting and stuff like that. Yes, but yeah, you're kind of right in line also to get a coffee if you wanted to. Like, I picture you being in this coffee shop with this, you're making this view. You would go up to the, up to the counter, get a coffee while this is rendering within the spot. It's Inception. Okay. So do I need to fill more time before this is done?
Could you start whistling? No, I'm just kidding. No, that's it. You didn't really need to fill that much time. That was okay. I do. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that the spot could be better in black or in wood. I'm liking the way these lights are looking here. Mm-hmm. The spots look good. I'm kind of scrutinizing here. Let's together, folks. Let's start looking at the glass. Looks good. Bagels. I'm getting hungry. The machine looks kind of like something maybe from Star Wars, some Darth Vader-y happening. It's a little scary. I know these are probably in gold or in copper in real life, but I'm going to go ahead and make mine black. And, there's definitely more we could do with the entourage. I just literally threw this up in 5 minutes because I was like, ooh, it's a lot of shelves to see empty. So we have to decide whether we want to, I think we could call it there. We could do some compositing. We could send it to layout and do a really cool sheet setup. Or what I could do is actually show you we kind of have two choices. I don't think we have time for both, unfortunately. So when I said we're going to look at some other applications, what I meant is that we kind of have a choice of which direction that we want to go. And I'm going to go ahead and save this view out. I know I didn't do a high res one. It would have taken longer because I don't think I'm fully done, but let's go ahead and save this just to be case. Just to be safe, I mean. So I don't want to save all the channels. I want to save just the one channel. We're going to call this render interior 01. Okay. So let's go back really quick to the beginning where it all started with my little watermark, my little cheat sheet. My little cheat sheet over here says that if we were doing this in the right order, which we were close, we did environmental lighting, we did artificial lighting, we looked at draft render settings, we lock the camera. This is our kind of chance before we get too far into it to say, do we want to change the camera angle? Because do it, if now that we know where the light sources are coming from, we didn't look at something like this. For example, we didn't look at, for comparison, what a 1 point would look like. So I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do, whoa, I didn't mean to do that. Way to mess that up. I meant to do 2-point perspective. So if we just did yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to do for comparison. I'm just going to do interactive render. So that way we're not waiting 3 minutes. We're just kind of getting a quick, hopefully just a quick glance at whether this could be cool or not.
Yeah. Oh, somebody also asked you what the specs of your computer were.
It's an iMac Pro, so it was fast, 6 years ago when it came out, 7 years ago when they released it in 2017. It still holds up, but again, I don't know how it compares. I would imagine that the the top of the line M1 Max or whatever is probably better at this point. That's kind of cool. The little area in the middle is a little bit empty. I'd want to entourage that. Shelves on the right, we'd copy something over there. Okay, that's cool. And then let's look at one more view. Let's just before we make a final decision. We have the time. Let's look at this view and see what that looks like. Because you get to see out. And then my barista, I'll put her back there. All right, that's actually funny because look, you can see the tree and the column for the table lineup. So it almost looks like. I would actually probably get rid of these because I don't even need them at all because of the HDRI. Or what I would do is we're going to replace them with some photorealistic ones. So we'll do that when we do our final render. So here's a little fun pro tip. If you have something like this where I've spent some time doing some entourage here, you can see them there. You can just copy them, delete them, go into this component, paste it in place. Because I mirrored this component, what I'm going to get is all the entourage from the other view. It's going to show up on the other side. So technically, if I was going to show both in a 1-point perspective, I wouldn't have them mirrored. But because yeah. But I think
we have the logo reverse though.
Oh, you're right. So you know how I fix that? Shh. This is why I got Matt. This is why I got Matt with me. Although you know what that does is it exposes all these problems that I had because you couldn't see part of this. Ooh, here's the problem with this. All right, folks. Sometimes,
like you said, good enough. It's okay.
We're going to cheat it. We're going to do a non-linear scale, and we're going to just snap. We're just going to squeeze this bookshelf in by a foot, or this shelf. No, you wouldn't do this in real life. So
these are the medium-sized bags, not the large.
Yeah, exactly. This is not the proper way to do things, but this is a live stream, and we're going to take some shortcuts because. So I want to look at that one more time. I want to look at that interactive render and see what happens from this camera angle. What do you think? Kind of cool. We just have
I like it. Get the wood look going on.
All right. So what do you think? Should we go with it?
Yeah. I mean, I like the first one you did, the one, but it's good to have the different views.
Okay, well, it's good to consider both. Again, we don't have to go with this one. It's just like, okay, we did our due diligence, looked at it from both sides. And then of course we could A and B this one, and we could B this one. Of course, that wouldn't. It's just a quick way to toggle between the two of them. All right, we need to keep going. So we'll go with our first one. We'll go with our gut. So here's what we need to do from this point on. I kind of wanted to do like a little bit of a composite celebrating this. We're kind of wanting to put a bow on this coffee shop. For those that have seen this, you haven't seen this over and over again. You've seen different pieces. I kind of want to celebrate what each person did. The patio and the shell of the building, I did. The chairs, like I said in the beginning, if you missed the beginning of the chat, for those that didn't know where this came from, the chairs, both inside and out, were Tyson. And then the this cool kind of bar concept with the ordering and the pickup was Aaron. So cool stuff. I kind of wanted to do something with those. So let's just, oh man, I wish I had prepared something. I'm going to go ahead and just do it. You're going to see me sort of do some graphic design on the fly, and it may or may not work. what I'm going to do is hide the V-Ray widgets. So you can come over here to Extensions, V-Ray. There's a tool in there somewhere. It says Hide V-Ray Widgets. So you can see like all the spotlights and the mesh lights and all the little symbols that V-Ray puts in. You can just say, get rid of that. I don't want to see those, which is kind of cool. And then what we can do is go black and white. And I'm going to turn the grid off for this one because that was just, again, for me to draw on. I'm going to go export 2D graphic. Let's go with the coffee shop, and we're going to go options. Yeah, we'll go 1500 is fine. Okay. And then I'm going to do, I like to sometimes do hidden geometry and X-ray mode. Kind of just creates kind of a cool look. Although if it's square, it's not going to be maybe as cool because you don't get the, all those hidden edges and everything. Okay. So J, X-ray, those are keyboard shortcuts. Again, if you guys are seeing me go toggling X-ray on and off and stuff like that, these are all about, figuring out keyboard shortcuts that'll help speed that process up.
So what are these exports for? These are for...
I wanted to do like a little composite. I wanted to kind of do a page and layout where I kind of just, almost like a poster, not like a poster, but like a commemorative plaque, a certificate. I don't know, some way to have closure on this thing. Because this is, like I said, what I was saying, I kind of stopped. But this is a project that, that we had sort of taken on as a way to collaborate with each other as a team. And I kind of wanted to do like some sort of graphic where it kind of brings everything together. So it's almost taking, so the rendering is actually the last step in that process, but then it's missing, it doesn't tell the story of how we got here, right? It just kind of tells it almost as if it's a complete story. You're like, no, I don't know if I'm completely sold, Matt, so you're not alone.
No, 100%. I just didn't know exactly what the look you're going for is, but yeah, no, I like it.
I would thought we might just do a little. I just kind of wanted to play for a little bit. If you'll humor me,
please.
Okay. So I kind of want to brighten up like right here. So I'm just using, even with all the light settings that we did and stuff, I didn't go back into light mix. I didn't go back in and brighten those up before I saved it. So even here, I'm just going to come in and just do an overlay. It's going to overexpose it, but that's okay. I can just subtly figure that out. So if you're thinking, this is kind of a fun little graphic exercise here, is that something I like to do sometimes is, which one? This one here. You put a mask on it. Here, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see better. You do a layer mask, and then you do a gradient, and you do just a black and white gradient. And you can kind of show, you can kind of choose whether you want to show it like that. Again, I'm just playing right now. I don't know.
Yeah, no, this is awesome.
I don't know what I'm doing exactly. So what's cool about this is that it starts to, you can kind of play with the masking. So I can kind of choose, like if I want to show no lines at all here, to show like that is realistic, or if I wanted to do even, oh, I know why. Okay, that's why that's doing that. Or if I wanted to do something like in the middle and show that with no edges there, kind of like the gradient. Okay. So the point is to kind of figure out a way to do almost like a hybrid where it shows that this is still a SketchUp model, but then it's, you can see that geometry in, but it's also got the photorealism. Like you can see if you look close here, you've got this sort of soft shadows, and you get the realistic material, bounce and all that stuff like that. And then you've also got the brick, which is kind of cool because it's coming in from behind, but I almost wish I had brick on the interior because I think that really would have elevated the interior, but almost like by bringing the X-ray in. it's almost trying to do that again. So this is, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know where to, I don't know like when to call it here, but that's kind of what I'm going for. So I want to save that because just for sake of time, of course, I could sit and monkey around with this for a long time. But I like to end on time, folks. We say we're going to do this 2 hours. I'm going to end on time.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So we had a question about, is this how you do the splash screens for SketchUp? And you do a lot of the graphic design, kind of these overlay model stories, right?
Yeah, I do. We do some of these, like for SketchUp Campus. That's probably what you're referring to. We don't really use these, like you'll see here for this commercial interiors, and it's just kind of a way for us to, yeah, make it look a little, jazz it up a little bit. So that's kind of this process that I like to use, where we kind of mix the V-Ray and the SketchUp together. And so now that was it. That's all I want to do in Photoshop because it uses that gradient. And now what I want to do is send this, save. I want to send this to, I want to grab some stuff. I'm going to grab, styles. Okay. What I want to do is I want to kind of, in my head, and I wish I ran out of time because, you know, these live streams, like we do a little bit of prep for these, but we don't really, you know, we have other things to do. Unfortunately, we do have other tasks that the powers that be need us to do. So we don't get a ton of time. We don't spend a ton of time prepping, but what I did want to do was kind of I kind of wanted to grab in my head each of these elements, grab the bar, and set them off to the side. And that's to kind of reflect extensions, V-Ray, preferences, hide V-Ray widgets. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this. It's even better to do this. V lights. And the reason why is because you can go in there and then you can take that and you can put it on a V lights tag. And you just turn it off. Boom. There it is. On and off. Same thing, I would take these rectangle lights here and I would put them on V lights. They're gone, okay? Anything else that's V-Ray, dome light, that would be V lights. So everything is, I had it on X freeze, but it's okay. All of this goes on to V lights. So I want to grab these chairs, Tyson's chairs. And place them off to the side. Maybe I don't need, I kind of want to show, I kind of want to just do a spread. And again, I just want to kind of put a page layout. I want to go to layout and I just kind of want to put the stuff on a page. And I want to kind of just, I don't know, recognize, oops, I'm going to pull those were all, oh, that needs to be separate. This giant beast of a coffee machine here, this amazing piece of art, this scary Darth Vader inspired steam engine. Well, it's a little heavy, Aaron. It's a little heavy. I'm just trying to make a copy. I don't even know if he's on the chat.
He was earlier, but yeah, it's always good to have a little gentle ribbing, especially when you're on a, you know, a model that you worked on together.
Yeah, you know, he picked on, I just remember he was making fun of my ceiling heights because it was like 13 foot, like 3 and 2.25, well, 0.7756 inches. And he's like, what is that ceiling height? And I was like, yeah, that was me stretching and pulling instead of actually modeling for accuracy. So
no,
Tyson's
there's
chairs,
always a reason.
Yeah,
it made room for those V-Ray lights up there with that extra, you know, 3/16 of an inch or whatever.
Exactly. See, you guys didn't see. It was part of the plan. So
Aaron says the reason that's so heavy is because of the eagle on top.
Yeah, I know. I'm giving you a hard time. I know I know that it worked. You did nice clean geometry. So the other thing I wanted to do was grab, that's it. So this is, you know, Aaron, I hope you don't mind. I changed your colors. I went with a lighter color scheme, but so don't shoot me for that. So let's do this. I want to just do a little, I want to go to layout and I want to just somehow do something with these. I don't even know what. Matt, this is where I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask for your feedback because see what you think.
I'll defer to the chat, but
Okay.
I'll tell you if I hate it.
All right, so let's do this. Let's set up a plan view. So what I'm going to do is toggle my section cuts on. I'm going to toggle this one on, make that my active cut. Whoops, not that one. It's inside, that's why. The section cut is inside the building?
That's Zoolander, right?
Yeah, the files are in the computer. Oh, it says active cut, but it's, oh, this is weird. Huh, maybe I can get rid of it. Delete it and do it on the outside so that it's in the same plane.
Always good to stay on plane. Unless you're a skydiver, in which case you probably want to get out of the plane.
Yeah, unless you're in a Boeing. Oh, too soon. You might not stay on the plane if it, depending on. Sorry, that wasn't very nice. Sorry, Boeing, if your stock just went down. But you know what? You kind of got a little bit of work to do, to be honest. Get that trust back. Okay, back to SketchUp. Okay, what I was trying to do was I was trying to copy and paste the section plane, and I just thought it wasn't working, so I just pasted a new one in. What I want to do is come over here, and I want to create a new style just to be safe, and I'm just going to call this plan view, and I'm going to go black and white, and I'm going to go turn my toggles off, turn my, it doesn't matter if the roof is on or not. I want my walls on, and I'm going to turn my grid off. Actually, the grid is kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It was part of the process. Okay, so I kind of want the plan view here. I also have trees. I have two kinds of trees. I have my 3D trees, which are not really 3D. They're really just face me. I call them 3D because they're off the ground. And I have these 2D trees, and they're embedded within the component. So you can see they're embedded within one component. So if I copy, for whatever reason, I want an extra tree, I'm getting both the face me and the 2D. So what I want to do here is I want to, bear with me, folks. I think we can do this. I can turn the ground off for this one. I want to do something that's kind of just floor planny. Ooh, these trees. See, it's going to bug me. They're not centered. Yeah. Okay, so what I need to do is create what I think is going to be a floor plan, and I'm going to move this just off out of the window so it doesn't show up in the window. Okay, there we go. So let's capture that view. Let's add that as a plan view. And I'm going to double check that in my scenes to make sure that my plan view does have my camera location saved, which it did, because instead of going from working, I did it from the perspective, and that remembers that. So I've got a plan view of what we've done. Cool, cool, cool. I may or may not want entourage on. Entourage is people and furnishings and all that stuff. I may not want that for the plan view. So then what I want to do is do an elevation view. So I want to look at it from the front. So in this case, I want to make sure that this section cut is not there. Oh, but in this case, I do want the entourage on. And I do want to make sure that my roof is on. Yep. And this one's going to be kind of tricky. This one's going to need some shadows because, so what I'm going to do is elevation. I'm going to create an elevation style, add a scene, rename that to elevation front. I spelled elevation wrong, even my acronym for it. I'm going to leave it. This one I might want shadows on because the elevation, you can't really see depth very well. So this would be an exception where I would go in and maybe play with. What do you think, Matt?
Oh, it's got to be summertime. If the door is wide open. Yep.
Yeah. And it's weird
Very
because
good.
because I chose to go parallel with those slats in the shade structure. So you're getting like the lines on the facade. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you could sort of exaggerate it a little bit. All right, I think I'm gonna.
Speaking of depth, do you ever do fog? I know some people love fog. Some people are like, well, why would I put fog in here? For showing that depth or not really?
Not really. I tend to not use fog. And the reason why is because it doesn't let you exclude the background. Sometimes I'll work with watermarks, or sometimes I want to see blue sky, but I want fog because what I want to fade out is something like a mountain, but I want blue sky. So the fog should be, all right, SketchUp, if you're listening, it should be smart enough to be able to exclude the sky so that you're only fogging the elements in your model. So does that make sense? That makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
So here's the other elevation. Let's do that side. Shadow settings, I might want to tweak a little bit because I don't know if I want the whole facade to be in the shadow. That looks good. Okay, so we're gonna do is add, rename, elevation, spell it right this time, side, and then we're gonna do one more, and then we're done, which is gonna be the axonometric. So for that one, I wanna hide all of these things because I don't want those to show up. And we're gonna create a new style. We're gonna go X-ray, and then we're gonna go new style, add axo. Again, I'm just riffing here, folks. I don't know if this is gonna work or not. So we could turn the roof off so we could see in. That's kind of cool, do you think?
Yeah,
You can
blow the roof off of the
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I don't know that we're blowing any roofs off of anything in this stream, but I think we could take the roof off of.
I think people thought when you did the renders in the Photoshop.
You thought that was it? Thought we were just going to stop
it
it rendering?
No, they thought the roof was blown off. They're still sitting in the building with the roof off, but
I know. Listen, the cool thing about these live streams is that you can go back and watch them as much as you want. So like if I'm going quick, that's okay because you can scrub, it's going to stay on our channel. And in fact, we like it if you watch the same movie 6 or 7 times. You can just put it on while you're sleeping and it bumps our view count up. So we have sometimes I do that, go to bed listening to Tyson. Tyson's voice is definitely the best for bedtime watching.
That's what I do just to bump every device in my house at night, overnight is playing the SketchUp YouTube channel on repeat.
Smart. All right. Yep. Funny, I like how you deliver stuff because I just answered as if I took your word for it. Like, of course. And then I'm thinking, well, what you just said. And I was like, wait, no. So what I'm going to do is set this up as sort of a larger document. It doesn't give me the paper size that I want, but I think what I'm going to do is let's do this as like a poster. So I may be wrong, but my gut's telling me portrait. So what I'm gonna do is go 24 wide by 36. We're in the States. Sorry for you metric folks. It would probably be the equivalent of like an A2.
And these posters will be available later for purchase. So if you're a big fan and want a spot poster on your wall, we can make that happen, right?
We could make that happen for our fans.
You'll be printing them out. Yep.
Okay. So what did I just do? Why did I lose that? Ooh, that's not good. Let me see. Let's try changing it. Here, let me save this really quick. To my coffee shop folder, we're going to call this coffee shop poster. We're going to see if we can get a poster. We might not be able to get a poster today. Oh, you know what we can do is we also can try, there also is a way to do it too. You can go this way. You can add the model. You can drop a model like this. You can drop it like
drag and drop.
Yeah, you can drop it like it's hot. Okay. Let's see. I don't want axo. Let's try perspective interior. What happens? There it is. Okay. So, and then I want to set this to preserve scale. No, I don't want to preserve scale. Here's what I want to do. I want to kind of match these two. I want you to see what we did. Look what you made me do. Sorry, I was just singing Taylor Swift for a second. I want to see what we did in SketchUp, and then I want to kind of compare that to our V-Ray, just to kind of have those there as just kind of a fun thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, the posters will be signed by Eric. You're right. The whole stream team will be signing them.
That's so funny. That's a reference to a dream team, isn't it? You called it stream team.
Yeah, I just
This guy. I can't keep up. I can't keep up with this guy.
My brain just goes off the handle. Comes up with this crazy, crazy stuff. Where will he come up with these crazy ideas?
Oh no.
Uh-oh. Camera location?
Yep. When I set my camera location, this is, folks, you gotta be careful. When you have a working scene that disables camera location, you may find yourself, like myself, that you will not check it.
Living in a shotgun shack. Yeah.
Listen, there's always somebody who watches these videos and comments and says, these streams would be better if somebody wasn't cracking jokes the whole time. And I always like, half of me is like, yeah, it might be. But then the other part of me is like, nah, it wouldn't be as much fun. So
there's a lot of those comments.
We do get
and
those
I
comments.
agree with them.
We get those comments that like, can you just stop interrupting Eric? Because he's trying to teach us something here. And
he's on a roll. He has 5 minutes left to make this poster, and you're...
No, we have 10 minutes left. I'm going all the way to time. Listen, these people at home, they can pop off at any time they want. They do not have to stay all the way up into the hour. If you can't stay with me, come back and join me on the recording. Come so you can see where we ended up. Okay. Here's what that's what I want to do. Oh, you know what I need? First of all, don't have stuff floating. Great extension called drop GC. Use it all the time. It drops it and it just stops whenever it hits something. And then the second thing I want to do is, I thought I had grabbed it, but maybe not. This one here, again, I'm going to lift this up. It's easier for me to lift it up and then drop GC it than it is, sometimes, depends on the object, than it is to try to sometimes get that to sit flush. I do want this spot logo. I wasn't sure which one I was going to use. I'm going to use that one. Okay, I want that, and I want that off to the side, and I'll tell you why. Because this is going to be this is branding. Aaron has a lucrative career in graphic design and communication ahead of him, if he ever changes his mind. The spot. Okay, I want that there. Because you can see that now I have this stuff sort of off to the side, so I can just use that in my viewport. So I come over here to layout. We're in dangerous territory, folks, because we're bouncing back and forth between SketchUp, render, and layout, all in real time. We're going to update this by going update model reference, which is the linked model. We need to tell it. Sometimes it auto does it, depends on your settings. I think by default, I tend not to have it update automatically. I tend to like to control that manually. Okay. Whoops. I did it again. All right. You guys are going to kill me. We got to reset our axo. And then that's it. And then I'm done. I'm not coming back into SketchUp. I'm just going to stay in layout. All right. Layout. I like layout. For people who I don't do like full construction document sets, obviously. That's outside of my job description. But I do for just getting a model to scale, doing a quick mock, adding some dimensions. I love the link between SketchUp and layout.
Making a poster.
Yeah, making a poster. So what I want to do is, in this case, I want to say preserve scale. This is a little bit tricky because I have to cut that off. I might just mask it with a white box. Okay. So don't worry about the resolution here, folks. We're going to, I can fix that on export. Right now we're just...
Got to get stuff in place first.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to do that one. I'm going to copy that viewport, and then I'm going to switch it over to elevation front. And then I want to just, right now I just want to celebrate the people who are not on this chat with all the people who helped get me here today. Where I am, I couldn't be here without you. Sorry, it helps to zoom in. I don't know why I do that. I like to work where I can see the whole page, and then I realize that whoa, my thing is super small. So then I turn preserve scale off. Oh, I'm not even taking my own advice. Here's what you want to do is if you want it to be to scale, then you need to set a scale. So in this case, what you do is say preserve scale, get your viewport set, and then set the scale. I don't know if I need it to scale or not. What do you think? 1/8 inch? Nope, too small. 1 inch? Too big. Like Goldilocks. 1/2 inch? Ooh, just right.
Look at that.
So now from there, what you can do is you can, yeah. So now you know that it's to scale, so you can start playing or monkeying around with this. All right, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to place some text on it, and then I'm going to put the logo on it, and then I'm going to call it.
Beautiful. I like it.
Which,
For the record, I like that axonometric view.
oh, you did like that? Yeah.
By the way, but you don't have to fit it in if it doesn't work. Earlier, we did have a comment. I didn't want to let it go past that. You did a really good job in the rendering of balancing the exterior and interior light. So that was a props that somebody gave you. And RT Cool also gave you props on the translucent scale figures. He says he likes how they look, even in the V-Ray renderings.
Oh, thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Feedback is helpful because we do this for you all. Okay. Oh man, I'm running out of time. You're putting me on the spot again, Matt. I'm gonna have to call it. Okay. So this is kind of cool. If you want to change, I just kind of want to get this. I just kind of want to do something that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go with vector. And then what I'm going to do is, and I hope that's not going to, for those of you that know, if you have a very, very high poly, something like that, coffee pot with that eagle, the coffee machine, maybe something that I don't need as vector. So I probably should have left it as raster.
Well, you got time.
No, I don't have time. We've only got a few minutes left.
Your last like 20 minutes have reminded me of like, oh no, we have the spot presentation. We have the coffee shop presentation in 20 minutes.
I know, I totally forgot. It's been this whole time messing around with materials in the first half of the stream that I didn't give myself time to do something cool with the layout. This is not rehearsed. This is just me wanting to put closure on this project that we did as a little internal team where we kind of challenged each other to just put ourselves in like design mode, like put our little designer caps on. Because in the SketchUp team, we kind of have the luxury of choosing a lot of times what we model. We'll model, if I might just kill it and open it back up. And if this is the case, because I don't think I lost. I don't think I lost. I'm going to lose anything. So what it is, like we do have sort of the luxury of kind of choosing a lot of times what we model. And I know that when you're in the design profession, you've got things like clients and, you've got things like real world parameters and budgets and, materials need to be a certain height and stuff like that. Oh, I did actually not save it. So, well, I'm going to do the poster anyway. I'm going to go ahead and lay out my own poster. You don't need to see me do it. I will just put the logo in here and then I will call it. So let me do that. Let me go ahead and put that back in just so that I have that logo in there. We're going to go over to elevation front. And let's see if I can get that, at least the little spot logo, and then that way it's in there. Oh, that's funny. Preserve scale. And yeah. Nope, you know what it is? It's telling me that I did something that I wasn't supposed to do. So that's
what happens when you live dangerously, man.
Oh man, that's what happens when you try and do too much. I know Aaron's over there somewhere, or Tyson's just saying like, you should have just stopped it at the rendering and you wanted to go to layout, you wanted to do this little poster idea. That's a different stream.
I should say Transom called out that you should have saved before you before you switched to the vector on, by the way. So.
Yep. That was rookie mistake. So thanks for that, Transom.
But no, you're good. Hey, great job, man. It was a great stream. I'd love to see the V-Ray stuff. It's just, something we don't really see too much on the channel. So, hey, and props to you for keeping it interesting, keeping it fun, and sharing so much information, man. You did great. Nice stream.
Yeah, thanks everyone for at home for sticking with us, for joining us. If you're new, welcome. If you're a returner, welcome back. I'll just kind of remind everyone, if you came in late, we do this every Friday. We have different people doing different topics. If there's something you're dying to see, throw it in the comments. Let us know. We'll try to accommodate you. Obviously, we want to keep things fresh, interesting, relevant mostly. Want to make sure that you're learning something new every single time. So hopefully you learned, like I like to say, if you learned one new thing today, it was worth your time. So Matt, any other housekeeping announcements? We already did the call for presenters for Basecamp. So just one more time, if you missed the beginning, we are opening up our call for speakers right now. So if you're watching this 6 months from now, you're going to be too late. But if you're watching this between, I don't know when it ends, but if it's March or April, then get your presentation. You want to come to Basecamp and share your knowledge with us. Come and do it.
Yeah, and if you just want to attend as well, it's in November. So yeah, 3D Basecamp is our user conference where we have all the SketchUp learning going on, and all the the great community is there too. So don't miss it if you are interested in learning more about SketchUp or trying to up level your workflow. That's the place to do it. So yeah. Like
Yep.
Eric is showing here, go to the website and you can find out more information.
Yep, and I'm going to leave you with one last thing here, which is that for a lot of the stuff that I showed today, sort of some of these tips are things that I borrow from myself. This is meaning that we sort of made the effort to document it in a little bit slower pace, follow along step by step, where you get to do an interior rendering. Get to do all those things like material swapping and looking at high poly assets, where light sources are coming from. So if getting into rendering is something you're interested in, I would suggest checking out one of our courses on SketchUp Campus, and along with some other good content if you're new. If you're new to SketchUp, obviously start with the fundamentals, and then go from there. So yeah, thanks everyone. We did it.
100%. Hey, good job by you, man.
All right, I'm gonna sign off then, and I will hopefully see everyone soon. So have a good weekend, and if it's spring break for you, if your kids are going out, get out of the house for a little bit, step away from the computer. Otherwise, keep at it. All right, let's call it. Thanks, Matt, for being my co-host today.
Yeah, thanks for presenting.
See you, everyone.
Take care.